How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Chair Talk. Guys, this will be a quick show. I believe the show is going to help our rookie correctional officers identify the skills that they may need coming into this profession. This could also play out during the interview process because during the interview process, they ask you some questions that could relate to some of these needed skills that we are going to discuss. My guest today will be Russ Hamilton. So by knowing these skills, this could help you with how you need to answer those questions in order to be the most effective during that interview process. But before I bring on Russ, let me just let you know I got some books on the market. Inmate Manipulation Decoded is now available. It's on Amazon, linked in the description. Guys, this book is used for training all across the country. If you do not have this book, get your hands on this book. It's got just a great study of how inmates try to play games and also what we can do to prevent ourselves from falling into those games. And then I also have two books published by Blue 360 Media. We have tips for new correctional officers and their supervisors and how to succeed in corrections, lessons learned while working in a prison. Guys, these books have just tons of advice in them. Not just for myself, but from other people in the profession. So if you guys get your chance, this is a good collection of books that will help you in this profession. And I also have 3 other books coming out soon, one on report writing, one on leadership, and one on managing unruly inmates. They should be out soon, all going to be published through Blue 360 Media. You start getting these books, start put them out in front of you, start reading them, and I'm pretty sure it's going to help you truly make this profession a great career for you. All right, let me get Russ. What's up, Russ?
Hey there, Anthony. How's it going?
Good, brother. Hey, Russ, you mind introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Of course. My name is Russ Hamilton. I am a former and retired sergeant from California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Started my career all the way back in the 80s at San Quentin. Eventually, I retired. Eventually, I went to work as a senior juvenile correctional officer. I now work for a private company that does reentry and rehabilitation work at a local county probation department and a local county jail where I'm the case manager. And I also am the founder of Keepers of Chaos, which is on Facebook. And basically, we help train, we help inform, we help, keep the keep the history in line and just basically provide all kinds of great information to anyone who is working in this great profession, whether you have a badge or not.
And guys, it's a great reason to join Facebook. I know a lot of people here don't want to join Facebook, but there are good groups out there that can help you in this profession. And Keepers of Chaos, KAOS, is one of those groups. Now, guys, we did a show the other day that really talked about how management can decide how to place rookie staff by getting to know them, seeing what those skills are that these rookies have coming in, and then trying to kind of cultivate them within their areas of strengths. Well, got to thinking, and I called Russ up immediately, is, why don't we just actually list what skills we expect from the rookies coming in, and then basically by providing this knowledge is to also help you pass that interview process when they're asking you questions in an effort to discern these skills. So we're going to quickly go over 20 skills. It's going to kind of just bullet through them. These are the skills that I believe, and again, nothing's all inclusive, but these are the skills I believe we expect people to kind of come into this profession with. Now, we're not saying that you have to be 100% effective with these skills in the correction setting, especially at the get-go, but there's something there that we ourselves can cultivate and help kind of make that spark into a flame. And I think these are skills that definitely get picked up during the interview process, but definitely easily get exposed when you're hit with those situations in corrections. Now, granted, these are skills that aren't just what management wants, but also what I believe we would want if we were to work next to a rookie. And again, it's not meaning that you have to have these skills at 100%, but knowing that you do have these skills at some level. All right, so Russ, you do believe that this is an important topic, right? And could help rookies or could help people who are going out into the correction setting get past that interview process.
Yeah, in the interview process where we talk about skills, obviously, you don't have any skills that you've actually applied to corrections at this point. I mean, if you're absolutely new, but what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to showcase some of the skills that you have developed up to this point and prove that you're trainable and prove that that you have something on the ball and about you, and give us a reason to hire you. Give us a reason to think like, hey, this guy would fit in. This guy will help solve some of the problems, solve some of the issues that we see in corrections on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, nothing is developed all the way, but you should be, trainable. You should be malleable. You should be, able to pick up on this stuff. And some people will, and some people just won't.
Yeah, and like Russ said, sometimes these skills are developed obviously outside of corrections. So with that said, it's about maybe applying what you've learned just at a heightened level when it gets to corrections. So the first thing that we expect are for people to have, at least at some level, situational awareness. So real quick, for situational awareness, we're talking about individuals that can kind of just take note of everything that's happening in real time and just be able to kind of, have eyes and ears all over the place, right, Russ? We're looking for people that can really pay attention to the moving world.
Yeah, situational awareness really kind of just encompasses where you are, what you're doing, and who else is in the area, and what resources you have. Should something go wrong. There's a lot more to situational awareness than that. But just being able to understand that, hey, the position that I'm in, I'm watching this yard. The position that the yard is in, hey, we've got Crips and Bloods out there, and maybe they're not getting along real good right now. And then just being able to kind of assess the temperature of things, and to know, hey, if something does happen, what am I going to do, and how am I going to get some help here? And what are the the chain of the what's the word I'm looking for? The chain of response that I'm looking to unfurl to get things happening there. And so, some people are just blind to things that are going on. Some people just, it doesn't even register with them. And that's a big problem, because, that is the root of, complacency, is not having that situational awareness at your disposal. So we want to train to that. Some people are going to, have had to have done some of that in their prior careers and so forth. Some people have never had to pay attention, and it will show, but that doesn't mean it's not trainable.
Right. And then I just want to, so from the outside world, here's a few examples of what they mean by situational awareness. You got retail management, so a store manager staying alert to potential shoplifting activities or identifying safety hazards within the store. Driving, a driver constantly scanning the road, checking mirrors, and being aware of other vehicles, pedestrians, and potential hazards to avoid accidents. And we'll do one more. Event security, a security professional at a large public event, monitoring the crowd for any suspicious behavior or potential threats. Now, when you evolve that skill into the correction setting, and I'm sure Russ has a lot to say on this, we're looking for people that eventually can observe and interpret body language and interactions among inmates to detect signs of tension or impending conflict. We're looking for people to be aware of physical environments such as blind spots or areas where contraband could be hidden. And we're also looking for people to stay alert to changes in routines or unusual activities that could indicate a security breach or escape attempt. That's a good evolution of situational awareness. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yes. That's just situational awareness is just something that you have to really be very intentional about. And when I first started, studying, the psychological responses that people have to different things, people just have a natural tendency to want to tune things out, and they want to, or they want to believe that they're situationally aware, even though they haven't picked up on even very small things around them that are the indicators of a pending attack or a pending riot, or an inmate, that's, on fentanyl or something else that presents a danger. So it's important to be able to know what we're talking about. And then the thing is if you ever believe that you have situational awareness, you probably don't. Oh, got you again.
You got me.
You're
Yeah, I
muted.
muted because of the traffic. And guys, as you can see, we're showing you guys how they're transferable. So if you ever interviewed, you can maybe take a look at the jobs you've had before and try to find relatable experiences that may be able to assist the person interviewing to discern to see if you have these skills that may be needed. Just got to be elevated a little bit more in corrections. Obviously, then I have the next one. It's not in any progressive order, but the next one I have here listed is communication skills. So out in the real world, just some examples: customer service. A customer service representative clearly and empathetically addressing customer inquiries and complaints to ensure satisfaction. Business world, the manager presenting ideas and updates clearly during meetings, ensuring that all team members understand their roles and responsibilities. I got one for educators: a teacher communicating lessons and instructions effectively to students, as well as engaging with parents and colleagues to support student learning. Now, how do we want communication skills in corrections? This is what we would like to see: clear instruction. We want giving clear and concise instructions to inmates to ensure they understand rules and expectations. We want people that can de-escalate conflicts, so using calm and assertive communication to de-escalate potential conflicts or tense situation among inmates. Communication is also part of report writing, so documenting incidents and daily activities accurately and thoroughly to provide clear record for future reference. We also have team coordination, communicating effectively with colleagues and supervisors to coordinate actions and share important information quickly and accurately. And listening skills, actively listening to inmates and colleagues to understand their concerns and respond appropriately, which helps build trust and respect. What's your thoughts on that, Russ?
Yeah, all of those things that you pointed out kind of like come under uh, kind of a single umbrella when I think about it. One of the things that I'm tasked with on a daily basis is, carrying out things under the motivational interviewing umbrella. And if you're going to, get out there and actually, do this every day, it's worth your time and effort to, to take a class on that or several classes on that and understand what it actually means to try and convey things to people, to try and understand where they're coming from, and to be able to do things like, parrot back to them, to change things around a little bit, but say, so what you're saying is, and then put that in there so that they really truly think that you're listening, and you should be, but also, the right amount of eye contact and the right amount of acknowledgement, that you are actively listening. All of those things are super important because, at the end of the day, the less that we have to rely on threats of force, actual force, reprisals, the disciplinary process, the better off we're generally going to be overall. Now, that's not to say that we don't absolutely recognize that those things backstop us every single day, but it's that communication that's going to make our lives easier, so that we're not in that stew of, constant response all of the time.
Yes, and guys, as I mentioned here, what we're giving you guys is really solid advice for the interview process, but also something that you could cross into in when you get into the correction profession in regards to how it got to be applied. But sometimes you are going to be asked questions on the interview process that's very correctional specific, and sometimes people get nervous because they've never done it before, so they don't know how to answer it. But with that said, when you have people that know how to construct the interview, they look for potential. So if I was being interviewed, I may say, well, you know what, I don't have experience with running a housing unit or whatever it is. But having said that, if I can relate that to maybe something in my prior job when it came to conflict resolution, I may not have a specific experience with, conflict resolution among inmates, but I've worked in the restaurant world. I've had concerns with, some of my customers who didn't like the food, whatnot. So you're going to bring a relatable experience. And then, basically when you get to the correction setting, it kind of gets elevated a little bit. So the next one I have right now is conflict resolution. This is truly something that you must have already coming in. And by the way, I want to mention something with conflict resolution. This is different than problem solving. Conflict resolution is usually more personal, could relate over ideas and conflicts between inmates, let's say, between, staff, between departments. Problem solving is very procedural, or systematic. Could be a systematic concern, and we'll get to problem solving a little bit later. But just some examples of conflict resolution in the real world would be workplace disputes, an HR manager mediating conflicts between employees to resolve issues and maintain a positive work environment. Even family conflicts, a family therapist helping family members communicate effectively and find solutions to their disagreements. We talked about customer complaints, a customer service representative addressing and resolving complaints to ensure customer satisfaction and loyalty. Now, how do we want this skill evolved in the correction setting? Well, we want de-escalation techniques, so using verbal and nonverbal strategies to calm tense situations and prevent violence among inmates. Mediation, acting as a neutral party to help resolve disputes between inmates by facilitating dialogue and finding mutually acceptable solutions if time permits. And I'm sure Russ will hit on that in a caveat. Policy enforcement, applying rules and policies consistently to address conflicts and ensure fair treatment of all inmates. As we said before, you got active listening to inmate grievances and concerns to understand the root causes of conflict and address them appropriately. And I love that, the root cause. In corrections, we don't go after symptoms. We try to go after the root cause. That's always the key, because we don't want negative incidences to happen again. And sometimes if we're actively reacting to what's in front of us without really trying to resolve the matter, we keep on reacting. So knowing the root cause matters. And we have continuously training in conflict resolution techniques to handle a variety of situations effectively and safely. Russ, what's your thoughts on conflict resolution?
So I think the thing to remember is that when we're talking, conflict resolution is that there is a whole spectrum of that. And a lot of times, people will really get caught up in only the part where you're talking. Rest assured that when conflict occurs, it is going to be resolved. Now, it may be resolved at that level with a simple order. It might be actual mediation, as you pointed out. It might be, just dispersing people to get them away from the situation and let things calm down. Or it may be, or it may involve the application of restraints and/or use of force. So there's a lot of different things that we do to resolve conflict. The thing that we want to try and focus on, though, is to do that with less reliance on the heavier-handed parts. But that doesn't mean we want to obviate those and say that we can only go there, because we have to have those as backup, because that is where we are going to be going at least part of the time. So as we think about these things, conflict resolution, the first thing always is we always think of the inmates, because that's the business that we're in. But there's other parts to that too. There's, the interdepartmental thing. Are there going to be conflicts between medical and custody staff? Yep. Going to happen a lot. Is there going to be conflicts between education and medical, or education and custody staff? Yes, those things occur. If we're intentional about it and we really try and attack that and try and find better ways to communicate, going back to those communication skills, we can obviate a lot of those problems and just be able to move on past it, instead of having people stand their ground and make the problem worse. So there's a lot to it, and we have lots and lots of videos on it on Tier Talk. But just to say that the first little part, be intentional about that conflict resolution, and understand that, it's not a failure if we have to go and do the part about putting bracelets on someone or use of force, because sometimes that's part of the equation. Sometimes that's the thing that actually solves it. But it's a huge subject, and we could do a whole show on just that. But just so you know, being intentional about it is the thing that's going to make you able to move the chains down the field.
Yeah, and guys, in corrections, we need you to chase conflict. That's just part of our job description. Sometimes addressing conflict can be uncomfortable, but having said that, it doesn't matter. That's your job. At the very beginning, you're going to have to give out those no's, and if you see a dispute, depending on the timing, we talked about this in another show, you can't run away from it. You can't expect it to resolve itself. Sometimes you do have to get in the middle and mediate, as long as it's safe to do so. And when I give this advice, take the advice in context. There's context there. There's moments where it's safe enough to maybe try to resolve the conflict, or there's moments where you may need assistance. But with that said, if you're going to come into the profession thinking you're going to avoid conflict right off the bat, you're in the wrong profession. This truly requires you to stand up and deal with that conflict. All right, so the next one I got here is attention to detail. So guys, in the real world, just some examples. And again, these are just some examples of different jobs that may require it. Quality control, a quality control inspector in a manufacturing plant, meticulously checking products for defects to ensure they meet the company standards. Financial auditing, an accountant or auditor carefully reviewing financial statements and records to ensure accuracy and compliance with regulations. And then just something real quick here, I thought this would be good. Writing and editing, an editor reviewing articles, books, or reports for grammatical errors, factual inaccuracies, and overall coherence before publication. These are just little examples of what we mean by attention to detail. But now, with that said, how would that evolve into the correction setting? Well, here's a few things. Contraband detection, thoroughly searching inmates, cells, and common areas for prohibited items, ensuring nothing is overlooked. Incident reporting, accurately documenting incidents, observations, and daily activities to create clear and comprehensive records. Policy compliance, ensuring all actions and procedures adhere strictly to institutional policies and regulations. Monitoring behavior, this is Russ's big thing. Carefully observing inmate behavior for subtle changes that may indicate potential issues or threats. And this is key here, right here, routine checks. Conducting regular inspections of facilities and equipment to identify and address any maintenance or security concerns. And I added something here when it comes to attention to detail. Attention to detail, they say, is more involved, and maybe Russ could compliment this or not, is more involved in the daily task of what you do, of the job. You know, that's kind of where the attention to detail is, within the routine. And in the situational awareness aspect, that's more about the big picture and the overall context. So I have a little thing here. In essence, situational awareness is broader and more about the big picture and overall context, while attention to detail is more focused on specific tasks and ensuring precision. Both are essential for maintaining safety and order in a correctional environment. In case anybody doesn't see the difference between situational awareness and attention to detail. What's your thoughts? There's a lot there, Russ.
Yeah. So one of the things that I always think about is plant integrity, right? And that's one of the things that we used to have to do all the time. I mean, we'd be going down the cell rows, and we used to have axe handles, and we were forced to pay attention to that detail. We'd be trying to pry bars apart and see if they'd been hinked with. We'd be checking locking mechanisms. We'd be looking to make sure that all of our equipment is functioning, and so that's part of the attention to detail. Is that physical plant part. Other parts of it are small but meaningful changes over time in things like inmate behavior. It could be in the way inmates are responding to you. It can be in the way that perhaps policy and procedure is impacting positively or negatively things that are going on. Sometimes we have to take and rewrite those policies because they're being detrimental towards what we're trying to achieve with the inmate population, which is a stability and a lack of serious incidents. Other things going on is just looking at what inmates are getting. Are they getting too much in the way of sugar that they can use to make alcohol? What are the things that they're interested in doing that are trying to do an end around some of the policies and procedures that we have that may not seem like they're really important, but they could be down the road. And all of these things, of course, impact safety and security and the things that we have to do that count the most. For instance, there is a lot of times during each and every year where bad counts result in inmates escaping from facilities. And that is an attention to detail. You have to be looking at that lump in that bed and seeing if, yes, you're getting, the chest rising and falling. So we know that we're counting living, breathing flesh, even though I hate that term. And then we have to, go on from there. But all the time, people are finding dummies. All the time, people are finding ways that they cut their ways out of cells. All the time, people are not doing those counts and then fudging them on a piece of paperwork, not paying attention to detail. And then lo and behold, some inmate wakes up dead in the morning, possibly suicide, and then people are losing their jobs. So it's really super important to do those things that address that attention to detail.
Yeah, guys, and it really does start with the basics and evolves from there. Attention to details at the basics really matter because everything really does stem from the basics. And sad thing is you don't know if you're failing at the basics until you fail, sadly, because it just becomes an expected routine. Once you start not being fully attentive to what you got to do at the most basics of level, it all translates upwards. And then eventually we're just failing ultimately at the highest of levels because it really does start at the smallest and most finest of levels. We got ethical judgment. So out in the real world, you see this in a couple of places. So just to give you some relatable experiences, business, a manager making decisions that balance profitability with ethical considerations such as fair labor practices and environmental sustainability. Russ is going to love this. Journalism. A journalist ensuring that their reporting is accurate, unbiased, and respectful of individuals' privacy and dignity. Yeah, I knew that. Education. A teacher treating all students equal and fostering an inclusive, respectful learning environment. And you could also see this in other law enforcement roles like police, where a police officer exercising discretion and fairness in enforcing the law and interacting with the community. Now, how do we want this evolved a little bit when it comes into the correction setting? Fair treatment, ensuring all inmates are treated with respect and fairness, regardless of their background or behavior. Again, that's fair, firm, and consistent. Confidentiality, protecting sensitive information about inmates and staff to maintain privacy and trust. Policy adherence, upholding institutional policies and legal standards, even in challenging situations. Reporting misconduct, taking appropriate action to report and address unethical behaviors by colleagues or inmates. And then your decision making, making decisions that prioritize safety, justice, and the well-being of all individuals involved. There's a lot there too, Russ. What do you got?
So, the way that I like to think about this is, from a top down kind of way. When we all come in, at least it's been my experience, is, we all raise our right hand and, we swear an oath to the Constitution. We swear an oath to the state constitution. We swear an oath, that we're not going to be sullied and that we're going to be fair, firm, consistent, all of those things. And that we're going to abide by, policy, procedure, and all the regulations and things that go along with it, regardless of the way that we feel about it. So if that's what we're actually doing, we have to have a North Star at our disposal, something that we can look toward and that we are making sure that we do not deviate from it. We don't get to pick who the inmates are. And even though job number one is protection of the public, job number three, in my estimation, is protection of the inmates. So we actually have to uphold, the rights that they've been afforded under the Constitution, even though some of that has been removed through the disciplinary, or I should say, the penal code process. And we don't get to just decide that because they've done a crime in the past that now they have to suffer more for it. That's not what our job is. We have to try and find, that equitable treatment, and we have to try and find a way. I'm not saying that we don't discipline hard, that we don't respond hard when lives are on the line. I'm not saying that we don't engage in use of force or whatever else it takes to make sure that we go home at night. But what I'm saying is that we have a higher calling to uphold our oaths. And so, find that North Star that you can, hitch onto and think about what your oath encompasses and then make it play out for you. And you'll have a long, full, and successful career, in my opinion.
I agree. I always tell people, rookies that are coming in, that you don't come into this profession with a blank slate in that area. You got to have some understanding of what's right and what's wrong. and that comes into you. That comes with you when you enter this profession. Because if you literally are a blank slate when it comes to that, you could get tossed around in so many different directions that you really got to pretty much stay firm as this is what I believe in, and this is definitely in accordance with what the job expects of me. And at this point here, these are the things I'm not going to waver from. Okay, so the next thing I got is cultural competence. So, and this is going to be unique too, guys, because the prisons is a whole different type of culture. Something that if you've never worked in a prison or jail, you've not been exposed to. And then, by the way, we have to literally be intentional with our interactions in that culture. We don't get swept up in it, but we have to be aware of what that culture expects. It's not that we promote it, but we have to be aware. The gang culture, the criminal element culture, if we're oblivious to it, it's going to run around us and we're just going to think everything's okay when it's not. Now, out in the real world, just an understanding customer service, the customer service representative, understanding and respecting the cultural backgrounds of customers to provide better service and resolve issues effectively. Community work, a social worker engaging with diverse communities to understand their unique needs and provide culturally appropriate support and resources. And in education, we got a teacher incorporating diverse cultural perspectives into the curriculum and creating an inclusive classroom environment. Now, how do we want this to evolve in the correction setting? We want people to understand diversity, so recognizing and respecting the diverse background, cultures, and beliefs of inmates and colleagues. We want effective communication, so using culturally appropriate communication methods to interact with inmates and staff from different backgrounds. We want bias awareness, being aware of personal biases and actively working to overcome them to ensure fair or unbiased treatment of all inmates. We want cultural sensitivity training, and I hate the word sensitivity, but it's more of a more human approach, but participating in training programs to enhance understanding of different cultures and improve interactions within the correctional facility. And conflict resolution also falls in this, where we want to see people addressing conflict that may arise from cultural misunderstandings with sensitivity and respect for all parties involved. Russ, how do you see this in corrections?
So I think that when you get into corrections, you should be very aware that your average inmate is going to have a set of attitudes, values, and beliefs that are going to be markedly different, not only from yours, but from most of the people that you have encountered in your life. And so if you're unable to empathize, and that doesn't mean that you're on their side and something that you're sympathizing, but that you're able to put yourself into their perspective. Most of these inmates, they're cop haters, right? And they're going to see you as just part of the system, and they're going to see this as something that's being rigged against them. They're almost certainly going to be able to justify things that they do against you, up to and including attacking you and assaulting you. And so it's very difficult at that level, if you don't have that empathy, to be able to at least to understand. If you can understand what it is, what their attitudes, values, and beliefs are, you can go a long ways toward being able to communicate with them in a way that you're going to have to, deal with them less on the heavy-handed end of things. It's just one of those things that knowing what the criminal mindset is like, what the criminal values are like, what the criminal beliefs are like, is probably in many ways going to be very antithetical towards everything that you were taught growing up. And then getting past that and being able to work within the confines of those things is going to be more difficult yet, because it's easy for us to just stand rigid and say, no, 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 which is very important to be able to do. I don't want people to take away that, I don't want them to think, we're just going to roll over and say yes. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is being able to understand it and then communicate back to them is going to change the way you deal with them on an everyday basis. And it's something that you're partly just going to have to experience. It's partly something that you're just going to have to be intentional about. And it's partly something that you're going to have to try and get the best training that you can possibly get and maybe not formal training, but training from other officers who have those deep insights and are able to operate at that level, the subject matter experts with regards to that cultural competency.
Yeah, guys, and the way the world's working right now, if you are not sensitive, if that's the key word, to the cultures of others, you could be quickly out of a job real quick and most likely dealing with a lawsuit in the long run. So with that said, that's definitely something that you must be made aware of, but you should have some knowledge or understanding of that before you even enter corrections. Um, Organizational skills is something I thought of recently. I shared a story with Russ recently where I was looking for skills in basically two different areas. I was talking to a senior officer who worked a maximum unit, and he was telling me the type of skills that he expects, which is more towards situational awareness, a lot more towards security side. And then I went to the min officer, and I was shooting the breeze with him, and he was quick to say something totally different. He wanted organizational skills. I mentioned why, and his basic story was, and it makes sense to me, is that there's so much activity happening in those full min units, including details and just programming and a lot of stuff that if you're not organized, you can easily lose count of where all your inmates are. And I thought that was pretty unique. I thought, as a guy, I could see why that would be important. And I'm not saying people will consider these all, foundational skills, but it really does depend on what the problems are that you most deal with. So like for that min officer, he's probably just tired of dealing with rookies that may come in and not know where the inmates are. So he's hoping that, they can come in with some type of organizational skill where they're able to pick up and run with it. Where the officer Max wants someone that's more security minded. And it makes sense, as I said, because even me and Russ were talking the other day with Joe, and basically what we expect from our rookies on an individual level could be quite different. It's really dependent on what we experience. So Russ may have an experience with one thing, so he expects his rookies to have this, where I may have experience with this other thing, and I want my rookies to have that. So again, for organizational skills in the real world, office administration and administrative assistant, managing office supplies, scheduling meetings, and keeping records to ensure smooth office operations. As a parent or caregiver, managing household chores, schedules, and family activities to maintain a well-organized and functional home. And you even have an event planner, let's say an event planner coordinating all aspects of events from logistics and vendor management to scheduling and execution. Now, how does this evolve into the correction setting for a rookie? Time management, effectively managing shifts, tasks, and responsibilities to ensure that all duties are performed promptly and efficiently. Documentation, keeping accurate and detailed records of incidences, inmate behaviors, and daily activities to maintain clear and organized documentation. Resource management, ensuring that all necessary supplies and equipment are available and properly maintained. A little at a higher level with scheduling, so coordinating schedules for inmate activities, staff shifts, and facility operations to ensure smooth and efficient function. That's a bit higher. And incident response, organizing and executing plans for emergency responses, including coordinating with other staff and external agencies as needed. That could be a little bit higher level too, but what's your thoughts on that, Russ? Organizational skills.
So yeah, there are some specific types of tasks and specific posts that are really intensive with regard to that. Sometimes you'll have maybe a central control type of unit where the first 30 or 40 minutes of your whole day has to do with accounting for things, accounting for keys, accounting for munitions, accounting for firearms, accounting for, this, that, and the other thing, and everything that officers and so forth are checking out. And then on top of that, some officers may have some responsibilities, maybe in like a main control where they're helping do the count. And so being able to organize those things and being able to, do that attention to detail thing and some of those other skills that we've talked about are really super important. Not every post is like that. There's some things where, it's just, you go through your day and you do X, Y, and Z, and you're more at the mercy of the schedule of the institution, as it were. those were actually the types of jobs that I preferred. I preferred going in there and not having a bunch of what I call clutter work to do. I wanted to be out there amongst the inmate population and seeing what was going on. But you still have to find a way to cultivate some skills like that, especially when you're thrown into a situation where, hey, you're there for the day and you got to make do. So it's really important to be able to function like that. And some people just have taken it to a whole other level and are really skillful at it. Not me so much.
I also know coming in, another skill we want is technological proficiency. Now, granted, uh, more younger you are, you probably already have that coming in. I mean, now in corrections, it's not we're introducing technology; it already exists. And obviously, in the real world, the same thing. I mean, cell phones, tablets, all this stuff. You know, a kid right now at 2 years old can navigate through an iPad or a cell phone. So, I mean, people coming in should have some understanding of the technology needed that we also be utilizing in corrections. Now, just some examples. I just mentioned one, but office work, a professional using office software like Microsoft Office Suite, Google Workspace to create documents or even Excel spreadsheets and presentations efficiently. Um, a retail manager using point of sale systems to process transactions and manage inventory and analyze sales data. And I'm going to say parenting too, because you got to know what the technology is that your kid's using, because you got to be on top of it to make sure that what they're doing has the right security there, that they're not interacting with people they shouldn't be interacting with. Now, how are we going to involve this in the correction setting? Well, obviously, we're going to be using surveillance systems, so using and monitoring CCTV systems or cameras and other surveillance technology to ensure the safety and security of the facility. Data management, entering, updating, and retrieving information from electronic records and databases to maintain accurate inmate records and incident reports. Communication tools, utilizing radios, intercoms, and other communication devices to coordinate with colleagues and respond to emergencies. Security systems like operating electronic door locks, alarms, and other security systems to control access and monitor facility areas. And then again, training programs, engaging in technology-based training programs and simulations to improve skills and preparedness for various scenarios. Russ, what's your thoughts on technological proficiency?
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are, just better at it than others. I was fortunate to always be, I always felt like I was a little bit of a tech geek. I was able to, I mean, I actually knew how to do things on DOS and stuff at one point. But you're always going to have those people that are more gifted at it. And there's always going to be, certain functions where that's more important, like count, for instance. Used to be back in the day, it was just kind of a sheet that we printed out and everything was good to go. Now it's much more computer intensive. So that's, one arena where that, really starts to come through. And then, other things, especially if we're talking about a jail or that type of thing where they're doing some sort of intake processing or booking, where they have these machines that interface with nationwide programs that involve the FBI and things like that, especially if we're talking fingerprints and finding out and running if anyone has warrants and all those types of things. It can be very technologically intensive. And so every little bit that you can point out that you've done of those things is helpful. People that know how to do, if you know how to do something, with Excel spreadsheets, or if you know something about, networking or those kind of things, always treasure those people because, at some point and more than once a year, things are going to go silly and backwards and sideways with regards to your computer system and your network.
Yes, and we also expect some level of stress management. That's a skill, believe it or not. Corrections is going to expose you to a lot of different things that you've probably never dealt with before. It can be very stressful, and how you deal with that stress matters. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of peer support involved in that. But the first thing about stress is recognizing that you are dealing with stress and then making efforts, to go ahead and resolve those feelings. A lot of people wind up hiding those feelings, and then it turns out to manifest into a lot of other things, including anxiety and a bunch of other things that can actually hurt you in this profession. It's very important that we do handle stress, because if I'm working next to somebody and they get overwhelmed real quick and they just wind up getting stressed out, now not only do I have to worry about the situation, I have to worry about them as well, and it just adds when we should be able to help each other in that moment. Some real world stress management. So healthcare, a nurse or doctor using stress management techniques to cope with the emotional and physical demands of patient care. Personal life, individuals practicing self-care, maintaining social connections, and engaging in hobbies or activities that promote relaxation and reduce stress. And customer service, a customer service representative using stress management techniques to handle difficult customers and high workloads. Now, how does this evolve into corrections? Practicing mindfulness, deep breathing, or meditation to manage stress and stay focused on high pressure situations. Even physical exercise, engaging in regular physical activity to reduce stress levels and improve overall health and well being. Support systems, seeking support from colleagues, supervisors, and mental health professionals to discuss and cope with job related stress. Time management, efficiently managing time and workload to prevent burnout and ensure a healthy work life balance. And professional development, participating in training and workshops to develop stress management skills and resilience. Russ, this is something that's definitely a topic that we discuss more, at least in the recent years. But stress management, how important is that, especially coming in, kind of setting that foundation?
Yeah, I'll say this is coming into this, you need to make sure that you find yourself a really good hobby or two hobbies or three hobbies, however many it is. You also need a way to deal with stress, after you get home. One of my personal favorites is I do Wim Hof breathing, and it's just a system of breathing that, helps you take control back of your body and reduces your stress. I've actually got to where I can hold my breath for up to 4 minutes at a time doing that. But you have to be intentional about it, because sometimes you'll get so overwhelmed, you'll forget that you know this great technique. And I'm guilty of forgetting about it from time to time. So those are good things. And then staying in good physical condition, and then avoiding a lot of different things. People don't go home and just mindlessly, crack open a beer. Don't go home and mindlessly decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to pop a couple of pills. Don't decide that you're going to, just, give up and go ahead and do some type of illegal substance or something like that. That is not adequate or smart coping, either one. There are a lot of better ways, and true, those ways have to be more intentional, and they take more effort, but they're more well worth it. So stay the course and figure out what those hobbies are. Do your breathing or meditation or something like that, and then after it's all said and done, do some kind of exercise, because that's gonna carry you through in so many more ways than cracking that bottle or doing something funny with pills or substances.
Yeah, and guys, the key is also recognizing it first. You'll know it, you feel it, because at the end of the day, if you don't recognize it first, I mean, we may see a little something, but having said that, you should know it. It's something that you should feel, and then address it immediately. Don't wait for it to pile on. And especially in today's corrections, we expect that now. We expect people to be a little bit more open, so we could truly have those that have the right mindset on the job. Because at the end of the day, I don't want somebody so overwhelmed with stress that they can't do what's expected of them. Okay, so we have teamwork, Russ. So again, out in the real world, corporate projects, employees collaborating on projects by sharing tasks, ideas, and responsibilities to achieve common goals and meet deadlines. For sports, athletes working together to develop strategies, execute plays, and support each other on and off the field and achieve team success. And community service, volunteers joining forces to organize and execute community events, support initiatives, and provide aid to those in need. Now, how do we evolve that into corrections? This is key. Teamwork matters, and that's a skill set too. Coordination, working closely with colleagues to coordinate actions and responses to incidents, ensuring a unified and effective approach. Communication is part of this, sharing information promptly and clearly with team members to keep everyone informed and prepared. Support, providing and receiving support from colleagues during stressful and challenging situations, fostering a strong sense of camaraderie, trust, building trust among team members to rely on each other's skills and judgments in high-stake environments, and training together, participating in joint training exercises to develop cohesive strategies and enhance mutual understanding of roles and responsibilities. Russ, we stressed this yesterday too, but teamwork, man, how essential of a skill is that?
So, one thing that you've got to realize is that you can't do it all. And if you try and put yourself into a position where you are trying to do it all, you're putting yourself and other members of the team in danger. You should be finding the part of the team that you do the best, or that you take the most pride in, or where you're able to do the most to alleviate the workload from them, and be doing it, and be that functional team member, that you're serving a good purpose, a specific purpose, and that you're tackling that, and then do everything that you can to support other people in biting off their part and tackling their part and supporting whatever the mission is, and learn what it is to be mission oriented, whatever that involves. It may be some of the day-to-day stuff where, hey, we're just going to make sure that we feed a really safe meal today, and that may be it. Other times it may be, more specialized. Hey, today we're going to do operations, and we're going to do, drug interdiction, or we're going to do a mass search, or whatever it is, and find a role that you can fulfill, and then either be a really good follower or be a really good leader, and learn the difference. Some days you're going to be a leader. Some days you're going to be a follower, and some days you're going to be more comfortable doing one or the other. But then you should try and always evolve to the point where you're doing more and more leading. Not everyone will do that, but I think that's important. We do have to evolve.
Yeah, and guys, and some of the other skills they do mention leadership. That kind of falls into what we're discussing here. So I didn't want to put that in as its own, because that's kind of, it's involved in everything we're saying here, and even decision-making skills. Decision-making skills is pretty much the cornerstone of everything that we're saying here, from, problem solving, conflict resolution, communication, everything is pretty much centered on your ability to make decisions. So with that said, I don't think we have to beat that up too much. But with that said, going to the next one, we have problem solving skills. Now, this is different than conflict resolution. Remember, we talked about problem solving skills being more procedural, more systematic, where conflict was more, personality conflicts or whatnot. So in the real world, here's where you'll see problem solving. A manager addressing operational challenges such as improving workflow efficiency or resolving employee concerns to ensure smooth business operations, which management should do, hopefully, in corrections. Frontline voice. Personal life, an individual navigating personal challenges such as budgeting, planning major events, or managing family dynamics by applying problem-solving techniques. And they have one for healthcare, a doctor diagnosing and developing treatment plans for patients with complex medical conditions, considering multiple factors and possible outcomes. Now, how do we want this evolved into corrections? Now, granted, when I say the word evolve, I mean kind of apply in corrections, because now when you have a doctor dealing with medical concerns, I think what we have to deal with maybe a little bit less than a doctor dealing with a complex medical concern, life or death on the line. Even though we have life or death, I mean, how do we apply it? I don't want someone from the medical profession saying, Ganji, you're telling me that the medical profession's here and corrections is here, because you never know. We have cynical. No, I mean, evolve. What I really should say is, how does it apply? All right, so in this case here, quick decision making, rapidly assessing situations and making decisions to address incidences such as inmate altercations or security breaches. Resourcefulness, finding effective solutions with limited resources, such as managing inmate behavior or addressing facility maintenance issues. Critical thinking, analyzing problems logically and considering multiple perspectives to find the best course of action. Procedure adherence, applying established protocols and guidelines to resolve issues while ensuring compliance with policies and collaboration. working with colleagues to brainstorm and implement solutions for complex problems, such as coordinating responses to emergency. And Russ mentioned it before, working with the different departments. Sometimes we have to work on a problem together, which requires everybody's participation. So at this point here, it's not so much about agreement, but rather are we aligned to get to where we need to be? Um, Conflict probably happens before that when there's disagreements, but eventually we need to be aligned with the course of action. Russ, what's your thoughts on problem solving skills?
So, this is really where, critical thinking is really helpful. Being able to, analyze everything and understand, the solutions lie within what your resources are, but maybe you can find new and unique ways to apply those resources to things. One of the sergeants that I worked with in my career, a guy named Dan McHugh, we were having a lot of serious incidents between two factions, two gangs, and so one of the things that he was able to put in place statewide was our yard get down policy, and basically anytime a code was called, it froze all movement, and every inmate had to cease what they were doing and get down on the ground. And the beauty of it is it made it really easy to figure out who was involved, because the people that weren't getting down were the people that were involved. And so even on a local type of incident that we would maybe have, where it wasn't a bunch of inmates, fighting each other or having a riot. It was more along the lines of, hey, an inmate's, disobeying. We got to put him in cuffs, and we would just instantly cease all movement. And then by ceasing all movement and everyone had to get down, that one guy, he's up, and then he has the choice to get down and submit or get sprayed. And so that was a great kind of outside the box thinking at the time, that I actually helped him with a little tiny bit. And just always be looking to find ways to plug in new policies and new procedures that give us leverage towards doing what it is that we wish to accomplish. And that's just the kind of thing you have to be cognizant of. Otherwise, if you're not trying to actively solve problems, the same problems that you have will continue to get worse, because they will wear away at the morale, they'll wear away at your readiness, at your efficacy, and everything else.
Yeah, I would say for me, problem solving is key, especially as you start to move up, supervisor, lieutenant, um, whatever, sergeant, lieutenant, all the way up to management. Problems tend to get more complex, because it's funny, because the more areas you have control of, the more complex the concerns may be. But that's why you're also given all those resources. Like when you start to manage a prison, you oversee all these different departments, which gives you tons of resources, but you're also dealing with more complex problems. They're higher level problems. Um, but again, even on the front line, some of the best problem solvers I know are the ones that don't always have the best resources, but they're so innovative. They're so innovative, that it's crazy the things that you could think of when you have to, when you don't have the convenience of a resource or a convenience of, you know, something that can make the problem easier to solve. Okay, so Russ, the next one I got, and we got down to the last three. I got adaptability is next. So again, adaptability in the real world. We actually deal with this right now too, but there's a lot of changes happening in the workplace. So you got to kind of know that when you're coming into corrections, um, it's going through this change, and it's rapid. I know it's a lot different from when I first entered. Definitely a lot different when Russ first entered, and you got to kind of go with the times. The future's already unfolding in front of you. If you choose not to accept it, you're just going to get caught up in just old practices and just wind up being stuck in the past. Right now, we need people that can be innovative and help us move forward. So in the real world, again, you're going to see workplace changes, employees adapting to changes in organizational structure, job roles, or company policies to maintain productivity and morale. You definitely see that in corrections. Correctional officers, especially right now, have to adjust to a lot more than they've done in the past. A lot of them now have to start understanding their role in the rehabilitation side, just to kind of keep things balanced. And then I also like to say on the rehabilitation side, got to get an understanding of their role in safety and security to some level, at least an understanding of that role. Um, Personal life, individuals coping with major life changes such as moving to a new city, changing careers, or adapting to family dynamics. And then we got market shifts, business owners adjusting strategies in response to market trends, economic conditions, or consumer preferences. So how does the supply or evolve into the corrections world? Well, you got responding to emergencies, quickly adjusting to unexpected situations such as inmate altercations, medical emergencies, or security breaches. Guys, the thing about corrections is that the problems, if you don't address it, they just become more complex. So you have to be able to adapt and adjust in an effort to solve that matter. You cannot, for any moment, think that you could leave it and it's going to settle itself. 9 times out of 10, that's just not what happens. Shift changes, flexibility, adapting to changes in shift schedules or job assignments to maintain operational continuity. Definitely going to happen to rookies. Policy updates, staying informed about and implementing new policy procedures or regulations promptly and effectively. Inmate behavior, adjusting strategies to manage diverse and evolving inmate behaviors and needs. And technological changes, embracing and learning to use new technologies or equipment that are introduced to improve security and efficiency. What's your thoughts on adaptability, Russ? That's a key for you, right?
Yeah, so adaptability is really predicated on having a well-developed and diverse set of skills. And look at all the skills and so forth that we've mentioned up to this point, whether it's communication or whether it's situational awareness, whether it's problem solving. The more of those things that you're better at, the more of those skills, whether they're soft skills or hard skills, the more adaptable you're going to be, the greater your internal resources will be on being able to pull from those skill sets that you have in order to plug in the solution that you need at that moment in time. So, one thing I always used to tell my officers is, don't be a one-trick pony. Some guys, hey, all they can do is write a report. Well, that's great, but that's not useful to me on a day-to-day basis necessarily. And then you got the guy, okay, he's good at report writing and he's also good at handcuffing. Okay, well, now I've got two things, and some days those are useful and some days they're not. Then as you start branching out, you get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different skills. Suddenly you're able to be of use every single day. Some of those skills obviously are better applied in more situations like communications, for instance. Communications is, it's one of the most important things that we do, maybe the most important thing that we do on a day-to-day basis. So if you want to increase your adaptability, you have to increase the number of skill sets that you have, both hard and soft.
Yeah, and guys, when it comes to adaptability too, I mean, one of the lessons I've learned is there's an ownership to the problem when you're dealing with it, or ownership to whatever's happening that requires the adjustment. So you're invested in it. So if there's a reason that you have to make a left, you're going to make the left. I would also want to add one more thing to adaptability, is that sometimes when we adapt, we kind of hold on to that leadership role, but you also have to sometimes know when you're adapting, you're kind of subordinate to something. There's a change that's happening, so I'm going to have to give up my pride a little bit, give up my ego a little bit, and see where this needs to take me, because I don't want to be resistant to what's unfolding in front of me. And someone gave me this advice that I think works out for me. Anytime I have a concern that requires some level of a shift, even if it requires me shifting from taking the lead to playing a subordinate position, is when it comes to adaptability, it literally is about when you got to take the ball and when you got to pass it off. Because sometimes the shift does require, it could be even a shift in just position. Here I am in a high ranking management position and I want something to be done effectively. And let's say it relates to the front line, but Russ is on the meeting with me and Russ knows how to do it better. My position don't matter anymore. I'm willing to sit back and give that ball over to Russ, who's willing to take over at that point. All right, two more things. This is definitely a skill that a lot of people don't mention much, but definitely is needed in corrections. Self-discipline. So we're talking about self-discipline in the real world, and it's going to relate to corrections as well, guys. And I just said real world, guys, just to know that I'm looking at something transferable. So if you don't have it in corrections, what have you done on the outside that could be applied inwards? Work habits and employee maintaining productivity by sticking to schedules, meeting deadlines, and managing time effectively. Financial management, practicing and prudent financial habits such as budgeting, saving, and avoiding unnecessary expenses to achieve financial stability. I bought 2 VR games today, so I'm not following that. Daily routine, establishing and adhering a daily routine that balances work, family, and leisure activity to overall life balance and productivity. Now, how does that apply or evolve into corrections? Well, adherence to protocols, consistently following institutional policies and procedures, even when not under direct supervision. Maintaining composure, staying calm and controlled in high stress situations to make rational decisions and maintain order. Punctuality and reliability, being punctual and reliable for shifts, assignments, and responsibilities to ensure operational continuity. Professionalism, upholding a high standard of conduct and ethics at all times, regardless of personal feelings or external pressures. And continuous improvement, regularly seeking opportunities for training and development to improve skills and stay current with best practices. What's your thoughts on all this, Russ?
Yeah, self-discipline is a consequence of self-mastery. So, on a day-to-day basis, if you are able to drive yourself in the direction that you need to go for that particular day, self-discipline will be a natural consequence of that. I always wanted to, be out there and be impacting, the playing field, as it were. Be out there, finding things, be out there interrupting, sometimes very dangerous situations and potential for dangerous situations. And then maybe above all of that, being able to either not be a hothead because it's easy to get caught up in the emotion, or being able to leverage a level of that emotional aspect in order to win in the moment, whatever that is. So, just being cognizant of being able to bring out the things in yourself that you need to at a specific time is really what that self-discipline is all about. And you should be trying to work on that every day.
I agree. And I will tell you one thing, self discipline is definitely needed in corrections because you need some level of consistency in how you want to manage the population. I'm not saying predictable consistency, just consistency in your professionalism, if you will. And sometimes, to be honest with you, we could take things personal, and we can't allow for that to mess with our professionalism. There's nothing personal here. There's nothing personal here. It's just at the end of the day, you have a job that must get done. So having good, strong self-discipline will even help you throughout your career. I know a lot of people that when they want to become a supervisor, they study really hard. They're excellent. But when they go to take the test, they don't do as well. And all of a sudden, they stop caring about being that professional, because they're looking more for the payoff. Hey, I'll tell you something. At the end of the day, even if you didn't get the position, look how much you've improved. I look at every test as a learning process. I didn't get it my first time. And I said, okay, well, then what I got to do for the next time? I wasn't discouraged. So self-discipline is kind of keeping yourself on that track, even if there's failure. How do I take the failure and turn it into a success for me? And that's really the learning aspect of it all. And now we have interpersonal skills. Now, interpersonal skills kind of encompasses a lot of the things that we said already, but just to kind of go over some real world stuff. So we have customer service, a customer service representative using interpersonal skills to understand customer needs, address concerns, and assure satisfaction. Workplace, an employee collaborating with team members, building relationships, and resolving workplace conflicts to maintain a positive and productive work environment. And personal relationships, using effective communication, empathy, and conflict resolution skills to build and maintain healthy relationship with family and friends. Now look at it. You got communication, conflict resolution. So how does this apply again to corrections? And the word rapport, we're not a big fan of rapport, but in context here, It's going to use the word rapport, so we'll in context of interpersonal skills. So communication, effectively conveying information and instruction to inmates, colleagues, and supervisors to ensure clarity and understanding. Empathy, demonstrating empathy and understanding towards inmates, which can help in de-escalating conflicts and fostering cooperation. Conflict resolution, using interpersonal skills to mediate disputes and resolve conflicts between inmates or between inmates and staff. Team collaboration, working well with colleagues to coordinate activities, share information, and support each other in maintaining a safe environment. And building rapport, establishing a positive rapport with inmates and colleagues, which can enhance cooperation and reduce tension. I guess rapport, I would rather use building respect, which could be exchanged a bit as opposed to building rapport. But with that said, Russ, interpersonal skills is definitely important. Have you noticed it also encompasses communication skills, team collaboration, conflict de-escalation? I mean, what's your thoughts on interpersonal skills?
This is one of those things that corrections is really, truly great about building. If you're willing to go out there and put it on the line, I would see, officers that would avoid, those interpersonal interactions with inmates just because, I don't know, for one reason or another. But really, that's the part that's truly invaluable. Get out there, talk to the inmates, give them the directions that you're supposed to do, see how they react, and then adjust your game as you go. And if you start that at the very beginning of your career, you're going to be the kind of person that can talk to anyone at any time and move those markers down the field with regards to actually getting where you want the game to go, to actually, achieving whatever the mission is at that moment in time. Don't avoid, talking to inmates. Make that, the best part of your day where you're going out there and you're actually learning what they're about, and you're also learning, how to effectively communicate. And there's a lot of different forms of communication. Verbal is just one part, but it's an essential part. If you really want to become proficient at this, and proficiency, is just at a premium because there's just not that many people that are really super good at doing it. And so, if you want a chance to really get in on some of the things that you want out of corrections, whether that's a promotion or whether that's being involved with some special teams kind of things, whatever it is, you'll get your chance if you're one of those people that has that array of skill sets, from the interpersonal to the basic communications. To thinking outside the box, problem solving skills, all of those things.
Yeah, and guys, when it comes to these skill sets that we mentioned, this is definitely going to be helpful for you guys on interviews, because not only did we talk about how things are transferable, we also given you situations where if they do want something that's correction specific, we were able to draw from something that is correction specific based on our experiences. And guys, these skills that we just introduced you to, that we expect management-wise from your peers, the inmates, it's beneficial to the facility as a whole. As a whole, there's not one skill here that puts anybody at a less form of a benefit. It benefits the inmates, it benefits the staff, it benefits management, it benefits the facility. So knowing that these skills have higher level application matters. Even though we may have focused a little bit of the dialogue on the inmates, the skill sets matter because we introduce this dialogue by what we expect from you. That means that I expect someone coming in to have some level of communication skill, some level of situational awareness, some level of problem solving. And then my job at that point would be to cultivate that into the application of corrections. Russ, anything you'd like to say in closing? I thought this was a good dialogue, man.
Yeah, all of these skill sets are attainable. There are going to be things that you are naturally better at. There are going to be things that are extremely foreign to you. But in the end, if you work on all of them, you can achieve more than you ever thought possible in your career. And it's a real testament to a lot of the men and women out there working that are really focused on achieving those skill sets and going out there and putting themselves into really uncomfortable situations in order to learn from them. And that's one of the things that I learned over the years is, what, if I always keep my hand up and I'm always volunteering and I'm always willing to post myself at the tip of the spear if necessary, I can make a lot of inroads getting above and beyond any natural abilities that I may or may not have, just by forcing myself to live and relive various experiences that help me, develop that, even if I'm not a natural at it. So it can be done.
Yeah, and guys, one of the quotes, I think this came from Russ a while back, but basically, effective correctional officers start with the basics: strong observation skills, clear communication, and the ability to remain calm under pressure, which we talked about: stress management, communication skills, situational awareness. And these are the pillars that support their growth and success in the field. Hey guys, in the end, guys, this dialogue here is just something for you to aware of what it takes to work in this profession, what's expected, and if people ask questions during the interview process, this is what they're trying to get. This is what they're trying to discern. It's the potential. So if you pretty much are a blank slate and provide them nothing, they don't see the potential. That means they don't want everything, but they want something. And we gave you something, and we evolved it into how it could be applied. And I think if you're in the interview process, this could truly help you with those questions that ask, about your skill and what you can bring to the table. As always, guys, the show's here. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify every time I post a video. Stay safe.